anyways, we're going to be going to do our first reading. Our first reading is going to be Susanna. You want to bring in Susanna?
Yeah, hi, it's me, Susan,
Hi,
actually.
Susan. How you doing today?
Hi, great. I am so excited to have a reading with you. I've learned so much from your work. I really appreciate all that you do in sharing your talent.
Thank you. So how did you find out about me?
I think some people I follow on Facebook had posted some things about you. And, yeah, it's been probably about 8 months or so. I just gobble up everything I can hear from you.
What was it that just jumped out at you? What was it in the material?
Well, I think the main thing that I really remember was just the idea from one of your podcasts about that the light workers that were polarized with the light were just as much of a problem as those polarized to the dark. That was sort of a shocking revelation to me. I just realized how true that was, and it really caused me to reevaluate my perspective and stance to everything. So, and go back to make sure I was in a neutral place when I could bring consciousness to things.
And that's special when people can go through that on their own and realize there are many, many more options to life out there other than what light and dark is giving us. And inside light and dark are many, many options that take us to whole new layers. Anyways, so we're going to get into your reading. Did you want to ask questions? Did you want me to go in and just read what I see? Did you have something specific you were looking for?
Well, I have a zillion questions, but I've got one burning question, and that is that I'm an artist, and I paint. I travel around the world as much as I can, and I paint sacred sites, plein air on site, and I'm just curious what your reflection might be about the benefits people receive from viewing my sacred site paintings, and specifically my Oracle of Gaia project that I'm working on completing right now.
For those people that are watching me live on Google Hangouts, they're seeing me with a gigantic smile. I love it when artists take their work out into the stones. And this is something you have been doing for many centuries. And when I look into the Akashic record of the artist of you, I see hundreds of cave paintings, thousands of tree carvings, hundreds of different river redirections. When I mean river directions, you and a few dozen or a few hundred other Neanderthals with sticks could go to a river that was made out of shale and small rock and literally redirect it into a flat land to irrigate for the first time. And you found that you could do art on a very large level. And there was a time where you discovered very ancient ruins that were created by people before the Neanderthal. And it was a moment that you went into these deep caves and saw artwork that was created by your own hand from a timeline genocide, from a building that had remanifested itself out of being outside of time with no ancestral connection. And somehow, some way, in the southern parts of Africa, your little Neanderthal soul found the piece of work it helped create on another timeline that didn't exist anymore. And since that time, literally time, you have been going through sacred sites all over the world, tagging, we'll call it that. So other souls in your soul group that experienced the recoming of many of these buildings throughout South Africa, Madagascar, the tips of Antarctica, and some of the other islands that were around South Africa at the time when the water level was much lower. There's a very powerful and a very ancient civilization of Neanderthals who were able to change their brains quite literally. Are you familiar with the long skulls?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I've seen them in Peru.
Okay, well, the long skulls, what that is, are Neanderthals. There was a time again when timeline genocide erased every living thing on this world, including all the ancestors. So imagine this world with no life, no trees, no plants, no nothing. And to get back on this world, we need an ancestral connection to a place that has no life. So there are people that ventured from across the stars and outside of time and remanifested to the dream worlds of other planets until they could find a way to physically come to the astral world here that didn't exist, land on this planet, and die. And once that thing died, there would be an ancestral connection here for souls to immigrate back in. And that's how the creational events allowed planets to come back into existence if one of those original ancestors got back there. Well, what happens if more than one comes back to the planet and there are tens of thousands of different timelines? It's called timeline.
Sorry, I have no idea.
It's timeline pollution. And that building I told you about was a piece of timeline pollution that came in at a separate paradox, in the third paradox, and altered everything that you did. It means everything you did on the first and second paradox were completely different than the way they were recorded. So you're part of broken rules, resistance-free Earth. From the very beginning, you found a way to leapfrog through all timelines and paradoxes so that you could ultimately make marker stones for your I am selves in unawareness to begin to paint sacred art on the walls so you could activate your DNA memories.
Wow.
So you want to know about the Gaia Project. You are awakening the stone people that you made contracts with millions and millions of years ago. And these are the ancient stones that knew they would see you in a future form, but you would be totally unaware of your agreement with them. And all they could do was provide love and warmth at the surface of their rock as you shared your creative work, so that you can find oneness with the mineral people and stone people, oneness with those that created the paint, the vegetables, and the ochres, and the minerals that would go in to create sacred paints, so that you could bond with the finger that was touching and painting, or the brush that was being used, so that the extension of your third eye went into the tips of your fingers. So every little crystalline piece in that stone was a part of that record of creation in that moment. And any other future ancestors in your lineage technology viewing that would have their DNA technology activated too.
Wow. Thank you. My intention when I paint them is, or my guidance says that people can view my paintings and receive the blessings of the alignment of the sacred sites without having to travel there. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes. But as long as you're there during the creation, you're creating a portal connection to them. This is the multi-dimensional self-you in a 3D world, trying not to break the rules that shatters belief, but still allows the belief of that place to come with you without strings attached.
So then in summary, how would you summarize how people would benefit? I must say, I'm having trouble. I'm seeking words to say because I'm having trouble summarizing. I think these things are just the coolest thing in the world, but I'm having trouble communicating to others like why they're important, because I think they're just so important to me. It's hard for me to distinguish and say.
The reason they're so important to you is because every time you get closer to the finished agreement, the volume of paint that's gone on your fingers, the weights and measurements of the contract, when that's done, you have a change of consciousness and become the next expression of a long skull. Because this is what you've done before. This is how you've guaranteed that you and your soul family would change in consciousness from Neanderthal direct to long skull within hours. The body would change, quite literally. And as soon as one changed, many of the rest of the tribe would just trigger a change because their beliefs were so challenged and they were such intense portal creating beings as Neanderthals, because they were massive karmic resolving beings at that time. Every step and everything they did was karmic related. Every breath, every footstep, everything was related to karma. They were resolving machines. And to break out of the resolving machine, you learned how to paint on walls and how to make sure you could incarnate in an area to see yourself have painted it on walls before, so you could remember and activate your DNA so you could once again become a long skull. And once you became a long skull, you could perceive much deeper in the future, we're talking 20 million years out. The Lemurians still existed and the Atlanteans still existed. They're just not layered into your Neanderthal timeline until that object came through and helped you realize there were 4 separate paradoxes and that you existed on all of them. And the long skull expression was how you unified all perceptions so you could be here now, painting on the walls of the end. So anyone else that's viewing these paintings you've done throughout the many millions of years knows where the end is. You are making a map to all of your other soul family members.
So, wow, thank you. That's really profound. Of course, I'd like to know what my soul origin is, and regarding that, if there's any connection to White Buffalo Castle.
This is a really good one. Your soul origin is Orion in nature. That means you spent at least a third of your soul density expression in life on Orion before you came here. And before you were in Orion, you were in called Plax Yakar. And that's on the very edge of our galaxy, about 28 million years ago, 38 million years ago, right around there. Time is different at the end of the galaxy. It doesn't function the same way. And what that world is all about is understanding how to leave the galactic rim and go through the void of nothingness to get to another galactic rim that may lead you to the edge of the universe. So you were an incredible explorer of the end of the universe. You did your time, and you said, all right, I'm going to take what I learned from exploring, and I'm going to go into a 4th density expression as an Orion. So you took what was a 7th density universal galactic expression self, compressed it into a 4th density Orion, and as soon as you became an Orion, within half a dozen lifetimes, you were engaged with the Syrian Wars, the Anunnaki Wars, Neanderthal Wars, when Neanderthal human being realized it was being abused by many other species out there in the galaxy, and they got together and had the first groups of war chants, where they didn't need technology to harm other worlds. They needed fire and a drum and a pissed-off shaman, and they could wreck space fleets that were coming towards them, or wreck whole planets, quite literally. And you were a part of these original Neanderthal war drums, and these are some of the other ways that Neanderthals created domination and control, which is the system that we're living in now, so that they could end karma. So Orion, you came here to this world as an Orion. In the first paradox, what had occurred is you were in a physical form coming to Earth to defend it, because there were Anunnaki, there were Syrian, there were Greys, there were all these other species who were in a race to get to Earth, because there was a very short window of opportunity before Earth would disappear from reality and fade back in somewhere else before the search started again. Earth was leapfrogging all around the different parts of the universe because it had no home at that point, but it had species on top of it that were resolving karma. So when you got there, there was this big battle out there. The Orions pretty much win the battle and surround Earth with a quarantine field so that it doesn't fade out of that local part of the galaxy and reappear somewhere else in the universe. Well, as it was fading out, the technology that the Orions was using was pulling their ships in stronger and stronger and stronger. And the Orions had technology that allowed them to reach back to their home planet and draw upon the unity consciousness of their whole species and funnel it through the sun and through their planet ships there and hold Earth in place for just long enough that they could incarnate a massive amount of souls that were holding that position. And you were one of those that was basically of the Orion concept that was seeded onto Earth to force change the Neanderthals to stop attacking the rest of the universe.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so you were a part of a light body force that is considered resistance-free Earth. Why? Because what the Neanderthals were doing then was not right. Not right at all. It just wasn't right. And in any way, shape, or form. But again, they were karmic resolution machine. So what they were doing was literally at the behest of universal beings, including chaos at all levels. That's why Earth would suddenly appear in one part of the galaxy and all hell would break loose, because the Neanderthals, looking up at the sky as sky watchers, were portal creators resolving karma whatever star that they were looking at. So when the Neanderthals stopped looking at stars and started painting on the walls is when they began to connect deeper into themselves. So when you paint, that's when you're connecting to the deepest into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So let's talk more about you. Let's take this reading a little bit deeper.
Okay.
And what other questions do you have?
Well, one of my questions I have is just that occurred to me is, well, I would be curious what you might have to say about my connection to unicorns, because that's been a theme for me. But well, in addition, when I've traveled to these sacred sites, sometimes I have these really intense ghost experiences, and I'm not sure ghost is the correct operative word, but I guess I'd like to know, to make sure that I'm doing things right. I had for example, at Stonehenge, I had an experience with these druids that got my attention, that were trapped in time, and as far as I could tell, I was able to help them. And then about 5 years after that, I was in great danger at one point driving, and I didn't realize I was in danger, and all of a sudden I was very aware that those same druids, and I don't know how I knew it was them, were warning me to be careful and basically guided me to safety.
Those are time travelers.
What's that?
Those are time travelers.
Yeah, they were time travelers. They told me they had got stuck in time outside, and I had helped them back. But
in relation to you, your DNA lineage was the anchor for them to come out of time long enough so they can come back into their right and proper timeline. And as part of a contractual agreement with anyone in lineage technology helping a time traveler out of innocence, that means that the next scenario where you were in trouble, the time rules were suspended long enough so that they can come in and reiterate to you a big gift that you give them so that the end would exist.
What do you mean by the end? To understand
that. End is always what it's been about. The end. We created this prison out of karmic resolution 54 million years ago. And the prison isn't one prison, it's 4 simultaneously running prisons, and we're trying to create a non-prison. That's the 5th. That's why we're on the 5th expression that's not a paradox yet, but 4 previous expressions of your paradoxes are simultaneously running. So for an end to exist, you had to be here. And if you had passed on or had even a broken arm in there, you wouldn't be able to be at the end, the person you were supposed to be at the end that you originally created as a zero balance.
Wow, interesting. Well, thank you.
Well, when it comes to time-traveling druids, well, what it is that's what they were. They knew lineage technology. When people get a little deeper understanding, when I say lineage technology, it is a technology, so a past or a future version of yourself can find an anchor point in time that shares its memories. Like I have Andrew's memories from this lifetime and all the other beings that are here right now. And then my DNA lineage has all the other people that have lived in this lineage when I'm not here is also in my DNA. And the same goes for you and everyone else on this planet. There's 7,300,000,000 humans, and there's 90 trillion time travelers out there still lost who can only look from 7,200,000,000 human beings who have all existence of DNA in those 12,285 separate DNA lineages that exist right now. So we are the master code to all experiences. That's why they contacted you, because your DNA lineage, the body that you're in now, had a way for them to communicate to you. And you were open enough to literally save their lives so that an end could exist.
Wow, okay. Well, thank you. You know, I've had several experiences, although that was like by far the most personal to me as far as it coming back to help me later unexpectedly. But in my travels, I've had many experiences, like on the Culloden battlefield and other places where there's been tragedy.
Have you been to Pumapunku yet?
To where?
Pumapunku, just outside of Tiwanaku in Bolivia.
I intend to go there, but no, not that I know if I've been there right now.
That is where you will find your greatest answers.
Wow.
Pumapunku's story is the heart of it all. The heart of why the Long Skulls existed, why there was an agreement to create a dream prison so we could resolve all karma for the 17 universes, why all uncreational events existed. It is the technology that had the creational events that brought us back. Those were the center points, so that the master being running all the timelines had portals to the different paradoxes. And the Long Skulls are what figured it out and created Pumapunku, which is an object outside of time. Yet on this timeline, it is destroyed. So that means we, these people right here, put it back together as we go to visit it. And we literally recreate it from the 4 separate paradoxes that don't exist right now. And once we recreate it in our dream space, we have global dream time as a unity species can exist. Until that time, we are relying on the sacred geometry network that is overlaying the natural ley lines of Earth until Earth gets powerful enough that her ley lines overtake the sacred geometry false grids, and then we can naturally connect to our world. The technology that was created by the Long Skulls is, it would take hours for me to even be to describe the very nature of Pumapunku, but it is a weapon, and clearly is it a weapon about time. And people have heard me talk about CERN, very similar in concept, but very different in putting it out, in application of it.
And so if I was to go there, what you said that it's a key for me, like, what would be the best action to take? I mean, is it just, would I go there and meditate and have a realization, or
pilgrimage to that place? Before you buy your ticket, before you determine when you're going to go there, you do an extended fast or cleanse, an extended time of prayer, and you pray yourself before you get there. You execute yourself, and you see yourself getting on the airplane, you see yourself getting off the airplane, taking the bus, then the long trip that it's getting there, and just seeing the first pictures in your mind. Now, you can go and look at Tiwanaku and Pumapunku on YouTube, and then in your mind you can create yourself going there and use your prayers to enforce it. So once you get there, you are entering a bubble of reality that you have been in millions of times before on all 4 separate paradox timelines. That means there's going to be a whole lot of information overlaid there. And if your mind is quiet enough and your body is still enough while you're still walking and touching the stones, you will not only get the intense experience, you understand why you were there during the creation.
Wow.
It's huge for your soul. It means all of the artwork that you've done on all the separate timelines and paradoxes that exists, by you being there, you can empower every single piece of artwork you've ever done in every existence and timeline, galaxy, and universe you're simul-existing in, so that all of your soul shards could do what? Have a portal home to the I Am presence, so you can say, I'm done and graduated.
Wow. Wow. I'm curious, I mean, that's very near Machu Picchu, and I was really drawn to go there now 10 years ago is when I was there. Was it really that place that was pulling me to that area and not Machu Picchu?
It was Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, but you needed to go to Machu Picchu in that area before you could get the invitation to Pumapunku. And it's an invitation by ancestors existing on all 4 timelines. in previous lives, when I look at you, your life between 300 BC and about 1100 AD is where you're part of different mystery schools that are leapfrogging through time, making sure other versions of yourself become very powerful for one lifetime here or there, so that your soul doesn't lose hope.
Oh.
And you've also been doing this for others, and others have been doing this for you. So you are a tremendous time traveler, but only on the first three. You were killed very early in the fourth existence as a soul. Your soul was literally eaten by a very powerful demonic entity on the fourth one. And there were many, many people that suffer from that, and that's what locks them outside of time. But going back to a place that exists in the now that somebody else made sure etched itself way out of time is a way for you to recreate your eaten soul that's locked away in a hyperdimension right now. And you can reconnect all of your soul shards and uncreate your uncreation.
Do you mean to uncreate the discreation, like when I was eaten? My goodness.
When you were eaten, that your soul gave up and said, I no longer want this experience in the universe, and I will go to zero expression at the universal level until the universe gives me a no I am presence immigration to leave as an unaware being of any experience I had in this universe.
Wow.
Means you're ready to give up this universe's experience totally because you were that disheartened by it.
Mm-hmm. Is that why sometimes if I'm in despair, although it's not very often, but sometimes in my despair I think I just really just want to cease to exist? Is that what that's about?
There were many shamanic versions of yourself at around the 700 AD mark that traveled to the void. They were fire shamans, indigenous shamans throughout the world. South America, North America, Japan, India, Russia, Germany, Iceland, everywhere you were a shaman. Why? Because you were looking for the other parts of yourself that had not lost hope, had not given up. And they put together a network of themselves. And when the part of you that got eaten, it can be unwound, quite literally. There was a part of you that literally gave up. You would have never been eaten in that concept if you didn't give up.
Wow.
So why does that depression come? It is a reminder that there's literally a part of your soul that is in choosing to be in non-existence, non-I am presence, which means there's always an access to the void for you. Well, in sacred mystery school terms, always access to the void means you are a consummate time traveler. That means no matter what your I am presence wants, you are in karmic resolution as a time traveler until you come out of the void or something else assists your body back into being creational. I would advise that you look at pictures of Pumapunku and Tiwanaku and really visualize and focus and after a while project yourself there after watching those videos. And you're going to begin to understand how much information is there for you to put together. A lot of it could be confusing if you don't come into it very clear into the understanding that there's so much information that any toxicity that I bring with me will make me misunderstand the mass stream that's waiting. Stillness, stillness, but you still must be able to walk.
Wow.
Okay, do you have any other questions?
Well, I'm curious, is that what you were just speaking of, is that what is something that enables me to do the shamanic work that I can with just being able to speak with non-physical?
Void. All right, I don't always go into this, but because we're in a different time and a different place and I have a different set of rules that I can work with, there are some beings who saw the soul eaters and I'll simply call them that. That's not what they really are. It was something that was created so that a future version of yourself that ultimately knew you were never going to give up made sure that you always had access to the void.
Mm-hmm.
So there were others that voluntarily gave up so that other versions of themselves that knew would never give up would have permanent access to the void on all dimensions, time, space, and existences so that they could do what? Ultimately screw up the plans of domination and control at the end because they were an unpredictable being that had linked to the void at all level. And as long as they met themselves in a sacred mystery school leapfrogging through time once or twice every 10 epochs, they would be just fine.
Wow, so is that what I did to be able to be more effective right now, to access the void and not be seen?
Yep.
Well, so sometimes I've wondered, like, if my vibration would be high. Like, sometimes I've wondered if something that I've not known about has been preventing the sacred work to be completed, or if I'm just, like, in right timing anyway, or if I've just been, like, I don't know, battling what I may not know consciously regarding this timeline type of stuff you're talking about.
Your mind's battling it all the time. A part of you is in the void. That means a part of your watcher system is always trying to see what's coming out of the void, even though the void is nothingness. Mm-hmm. So my question for you is, what animals are you working with?
Horses and bears and cats.
How many horses do you have?
I don't know. I don't have any physically as a pet or anything right now. I can't afford it right now, but I love horses. I'm not sure the answer. Maybe 4.
My answer to you is you need to go and pet a horse.
Yes, I do.
Them in your experience. Right. And the reason why is they're linked to your soul family and they're part of your huge life that has got a giant 1 degree of separation. To be a shaman in all of these other lifetimes means that you were connected to the animal world. And yes. This may seem really, really odd, but you are so connected to the bluefin tuna that I'm going to label you the first ever bluefin tuna lady that I've ever met that's so damn soul connected to tuna. You've had thousands and thousands of lifetimes ago where you were blissfully as a tuna solving all karma in the universe.
Oh my gosh.
There are things that I just run across. I mean, I'm just going to call it as I see it. I mean, I see your expression as a bluefin tuna, where every layer of fat, everything that was protecting the core center being that was incarnating in this tuna, so it could literally resolve karma just by its gills filtering water.
Huh.
You didn't have to be one tuna. You were a whole school.
Wow, I grew up as a swimmer. I'm a real good swimmer. I've always related personally to the dolphins more, but okay, tuna. I'm just curious.
You have those lifetimes, and I'm looking at your Akashic record at your soul density, and the lifetimes that is the time traveler, and then the underlying that is the tuna.
That's awesome.
Well, when we lost our expression as a species and had to literally come back brand new as the new first ancestors of the world after timeline genocide, not everyone chose to be a human being again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is it start over? Literally, do you need to have 2 legs? No, I'm going to go in with fins and see what I can do. And you had a blast. And it didn't matter if the planet was being blown up at all, because you were still connected to source. All right, I have got to move on to the next caller.
Okay.
Absolutely fabulous.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Thank you. Bless you. Bye-bye.